I had never in my life before or since been more primed to fall in love. Catching that fever, I felt sure, would inoculate me against all other worries and fears. I longed for change, for something to happen, some adventure, and falling in love seemed more accessible than, say, solving a murder. But even though I thought she was lovely, I was not touched by some wand. There's no flourish on the harp and no change in the lighting. If I'd been busier that summer or happier at home, then I might not have thought about her so much. But I was neither busy nor happy, and so I fell.
David Nicholls, hello.
Hello, hi.
Hello. Now, that was from your latest book, Sweet Sorrow, that's just come out in French. Now, you were first on the show to talk about One Day a few years back. It became among the biggest selling British novels of recent times. It made your name. It also made us cry quite a bit. You've since become a Bafta-winning, Man Booker Prize nominated screenwriter and author whose fifth book is out and being translated into French. How's life?
It's fine. It's very strange. I'm not doing any writing at all, which I don't enjoy. I don't like not being able to write. There are too many distractions. But it's been a very unusual time, as it has for everyone.
And what's keeping you from writing? Because we imagine that this is an ideal time for a writer, like locked in at home with lots of time spare, nothing else to do and nowhere to go.
Yes, no, everyone keeps quoting Shakespeare and King Lear, Shakespeare writing King Lear in lockdown, but I don't think he looked after his kids. And I have two kids at home. We're not really meant to be going out. I usually write in an office and I can't go to the office every day. And also I wanted to write something contemporary, about today's world. And I don't really know what today's world is at the moment. Everything's changing so much. It's very difficult to write about normal human interaction when we don't really know what we mean by that at the moment. So I'm taking a little break and concentrating on the family and slowly getting back into the idea of writing something.
What's the current lockdown situation like in the UK? Because from outside, it seems quite confusing.
Yes, it's confusing for us too. It was very strict for a while. Now it's less strict, but in ways that aren't clearly defined. We are allowed to see one other person in the open air. But there's a sense, I think, that it's starting to crumble a little bit. The shops still aren't open, but the streets are definitely busier. It's a strange nowhere land, really. It's not quite back to normal, but neither is it the very strict quarantine that we had a couple of weeks ago.
Well, it is a perfect time to get some reading done for people, especially who don't have children. Your book, Sweet Sorrow, is out in French, a story of first love, family breakdown, and lost innocence. How would you describe it?
Yes, it's a classic summer coming-of-age love story. It's about a kid, Charlie, who's a little bit lost and bumps into this girl and really likes her, Fran. They fall in love, but she's performing in a production of Romeo and Juliet, an amateur production of Romeo and Juliet. And he realizes to his horror that the only way he's going to see her, the only way he's going to spend time with her is to join the production. So it starts as a very warm, summery love story, a comedy about putting on a play, but gradually goes into darker places about growing up, about family, about parenthood. So it's a warm, nostalgic, funny, sad love story.
Sweet Sorrow is set over the summer of 1997. It was an important moment for the UK. Why did you choose this moment?
I think in a way that 1 year seems to sum up a whole decade. 97 is sort of the epitome of the 90s, especially for British readers. You know, it was the year of Tony Blair's election. It was the year when Princess Diana died. There was a kind of cultural confidence in the air. The Spice Girls were everywhere. Oasis were everywhere. So it's a very memorable year. I think it's probably the last year when plausibly not everyone had a mobile phone, and a lot of the plot involves miscommunication. So that's very helpful. Maybe it's the last non-technological year. Also, I wanted the novel is a memory book. It's someone looking back, and it seemed important that Charlie was looking back from the age of 38 when he's about to get married, as opposed to 53, 54, which is my age. So there was a mathematical reason as well. But I think 97 was a particularly memorable year. It's the one that really shines from that decade.
And your writing often focuses on nostalgia, also on romance. But over the past few years, you've delved a little bit into darker worlds with adaptations of Thomas Hardy's Far from the Madding Crowd and the Edward St Aubyn novels for the TV series Patrick Melrose, with Benedict Cumberbatch about overcoming addictions and overcoming an abusive childhood. You actually won a Bafta for that. What was that change of tone like for you? Was it hard?
It was thrilling, really. I mean, there's something quite technical about screenwriting. It's more of a craft than writing fiction, where nearly always you're drawing on your own experience, albeit in a disguised way. Screenwriting is often about choosing material, shaping material. I loved those books. I'd never adapt a book that I didn't really love. So really delving into that world and just sucking it up and absorbing it is really exciting. And I think adapting other writers' books, it stretches your range as a writer. I would never be able to tell the story of Patrick Melrose by myself.
And you've been working on adapting your previous novel, Us, for TV. Where are you with that?
We were about to broadcast it. We just had to do the last bit of music recording and the last bit of dubbing with the actors. And then lockdown happened and you couldn't have two people in a room. And suddenly it was impossible to do these very simple things. So we're just on the edge of finishing that. When we can go back into the studio, we'll record the final dialogue and music. And it's really good. I'm very proud of it.
And what effect do you think the pandemic is going to have on the book industry?
Well, people are reading more than ever. I think a lot of people have rediscovered reading, but they're reading a smaller number of writers. And I think it's really hard for debut authors to break through at the moment. And I do worry that without the physical browsing in a bookshop, that process of discovery, that a lot of books are going to get lost. So I hope that people can safely return to bookshops before too long and rediscover those books, because there are a lot of really fantastic writers who've had the misfortune of publishing during the pandemic.
As you know, David, France loves its bookshops. It's among the countries in the world with the highest number of independent bookshops. But the industry is struggling because of the pandemic, which forced stores to shut. Now, writers, publishers, and booksellers are calling on the government for financial aid to save the book. Let's take a trip now to some bookshops in the French city of Lyon.
Lyon bookshop L'Astragale is named for a French novel that opens with a fateful broken ankle. Since reopening post-lockdown, it's back on its feet.
En fait, on est pris dans ce qu'il nous raconte et qu'on a envie de savoir si le service va bien se passer ou pas.
Once again, able to recommend their favorite new releases and to predict what their clientele will enjoy. It's a breath of fresh air for the booksellers here, but also for their customers, like this family who rushed in as soon as they could.
Il faut les préserver, il faut les aider. C'est un message citoyen, en tout cas engagé. Voilà.
The shop first opened its doors 4 years ago. Its finances are healthy, but they've also gotten a boost from clients in the form of gift vouchers ordered during lockdown, some 10,000 euros worth.
On a eu un nombre de retours énormissime, plein de petits mots extrêmement gentils, de belles paroles qui nous ont mis un peu la joie au cœur. Et puis on a surtout récolté beaucoup d'argent, ce qui nous a vraiment permis de passer cette période on va dire mi-avril, fin avril, qui était un peu plus délicate, sans inquiétude.
In this bookshop to the city's northwest, plenty of hand sanitizer is on hand to welcome the large number of returning clients. Mornings are reserved for picking up orders, and the telephone is ringing off the hook. Still, the future profitability of bookshops is by no means assured.
On est dans un petit moment d'euphorie, on est à 10 jours après le confinement, mais ce qu'il faut voir, c'est suivre dans la durée, dans les mois qui viennent. Je ne peux pas me prononcer là-dessus.
In the meantime, the lines outside suggest an ongoing commitment to French bookshops and a renewed joy at their reopenings.
Well, when President Macron announced the confinement here in France, he told us all that we should use this time to read. On Twitter, David Nicholls, you've been supporting new writers and releases during this time when bookshops are shut around the world. So I wanted to get some of your book tips at the moment. Tell us about your best classic read.
Well, I love Dickens. I love all his novels, but I think the greatest is Bleak House, which is a big 500-page thick wad of paper, but incredibly entertaining, full of comedy, but also darkness. I think it's his most mature book. And that's something really to get lost in. It's an epic and it's wonderful.
Okay, and your best non-Anglophone book to read?
When I was writing Sweet Sorrow, one of the books I thought about a lot was Le Grand Monde by Alain Fournier, which is another book about memory, about nostalgia, about the pull of nostalgia, about how it can affect our whole lives, one single instant. And that's a book I really love and go back to often.
Okay, and something we probably all need a bit of at the moment, a best escapist read?
Well, it's a terribly sad book, but I've just gone back to The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald because it has this wonderful, louche, heavy, summery atmosphere. It's not an escapist book. It's quite tragic and poignant and melancholy. But it's a book I really love. I think it's the most exquisite short novel.
And finally, your best Armageddon read?
This is a book I read when I was 16, and it's stayed with me ever since, 1984 by George Orwell, which is a terrifically gloomy and dark book, but has so much to say about politics, about the media, about how important it is to stay alert and hold on to the truth. I think it's a very profound book and also a very entertaining book, a spy story, a love story, really one of the central books of the 20th century.
Just before we go, what's your cultural pick of the moment?
Well, I'm reading and I'm also listening to a lot of music. And the album that's really stuck with me is the new Fiona Apple album. Incredibly original and strange and eccentric and angry and beautiful. And I particularly like the song Cosmonauts on that album. So that would be my pick of the moment.
Okay, David Nicholls, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. We're going to leave you guys with a taster of Fiona Apple's new album. Your new book, Sweet Sorrow, is out in French now. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Now let me see, it's you and me. Forgive, good God. How do you suppose that we'll survive? Come on, that's right. Left, right. Make lighter all the heavier. Cause you and I will be like a couple of cosmonauts. Except with way more gravity than when we started off.